The massive underground chamber stretched nearly half a kilometer across, carved from solid bedrock beneath the mountains of what was once called North America. 5,000 humans sat in perfect stillness, their breathing synchronized, their minds quiet. This was the silent worship, a tradition maintained for 3 centuries since the Great Conflict. Tom shifted slightly on his stone seat, careful not to make a sound. At 22, this was his 100th time participating in the ceremony. His mentor, Jack, sat beside him, eyes closed, back straight despite his 70 years. The old man had never explained why they continued this practice, only that it was the most important duty humans could perform. The silence keeps us safe, Jack always said. Remember that. The chamber was lit only by soft blue lights embedded in the walls, casting long shadows across the gathered people. No one spoke. No one moved. The only sound was the gentle hum of the air circulation system keeping the vast space breathable. 2 kilometers above them, the surface of Earth appeared, mostly abandoned. Small settlements dotted the landscape, humans living simple lives, farming, building, and maintaining the old technologies without developing new ones. To any observer, humanity seemed to have abandoned its earlier dreams of expansion and progress. This was exactly what they wanted the universe to believe. Commander Rax stood on the bridge of the scout vessel Distant Reach, studying the blue-green planet below. His gray skin reflected the glow of the ship's instruments as his 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought among his species. Another primitive world, said his second-in-command, Dren. Barely worth conquering. Rax turned his elongated head. The records show they once had promising technology, then they simply stopped advancing. The visitors, as they called themselves, had conquered 17 systems over the past century. Their strategy was efficient. Identify developing civilizations, assess their technology and resources, then quickly overwhelm them before they could pose any threat. They had never encountered serious resistance. Our scans detect unusual energy patterns underground, said the science officer Lin. Regular gatherings of humans in massive chambers. No machinery, just bodies. Religious rituals. Dren dismissed with a wave of his 3-fingered hand. Many species cling to such practices before accepting our rule. Rax wasn't convinced. 3 centuries ago, these humans were developing faster than any species we've encountered. Then suddenly, they retreated from space, dismantled most of their cities, and adopted this simple existence. He gestured toward the view screen. I want to know why. The High Command expects our report in 7 rotations, Dren reminded him. We should focus on cataloging resources, not studying primitive customs. We will do both, Rax decided. Prepare a surface team. We'll observe one of these gatherings. The silent worship continued as it always did. Hour 3 passed into hour 4. Some of the younger participants struggled to maintain their discipline, but the weight of tradition kept them still. In the center of the chamber, a simple stone pedestal stood empty, the focal point toward which everyone faced. Jack had once told Tom that the earliest ceremonies had included a physical object on that pedestal, but no one alive knew what it had been. The purpose of silent worship was remembrance of something that must never be forgotten, yet the specific memory had been intentionally lost to time. This paradox had always fascinated Tom. A slight vibration passed through the stone floor. Tom's eyes flickered open momentarily. Such disturbances were rare but not unheard of, usually minor seismic activity in the mountain range above. He closed his eyes again and resumed his controlled breathing. What Tom couldn't see was the small probe that had penetrated the chamber's ceiling, hovering silently near the high rock dome. Inside the probe, cameras and sensors recorded everything: body, temperatures, heart rates, brain activity of the participants, and the strange energy readings that had drawn the aliens' attention. Fascinating, Lynn whispered as she studied the data streaming back to their hidden ship. 5,000 humans. Perfectly synchronized biometric readings. This is not random, this is training. Rax leaned forward. Training for what? Unknown. But look at these energy patterns. She pointed to a pulsing display. "They're generating a field that extends well beyond the chamber. It's subtle, but it's there." Dren snorted. "You're seeing meaning in meaningless ritual. These humans are no threat. Our invasion will be as simple as the others." "No." Rax's voice was firm. "Something's not right. I want a closer look." He stood from his command. "Sure, I'll lead the infiltration team myself." 6 hours later, as darkness fell across the mountains, 3 visitors in environment suits made their way through a secondary entrance to the underground complex. Their adaptive camouflage rendered them nearly invisible against the rough stone walls. "Remember," Rax subvocalized through their secure communication system. "Observation only. We don't engage." They moved silently through the tunnels, following the map their probes had constructed. The alien technology allowed them to bypass the simple security systems the humans had installed. Eventually, they reached a narrow observation balcony overlooking the main chamber. From this vantage point, the sight was even more impressive. Row upon row of motionless humans, creating perfect concentric circles around the empty pedestal. The silence was absolute. "This has been continuing for nearly 9 hours now," Lynn noted, checking her instruments. "No breaks, no movement." "Their discipline is remarkable," Rax admitted. "Perhaps there's more to these humans than—" His words cut off as Dren stumbled, sending a small shower of loose stones clattering down into the chamber below. The sound, though minor, echoed dramatically in the perfect silence. 5,000 heads remained still, but something changed. Rax felt it before his instruments detected it, a shift in the atmosphere, a tightening of attention. The humans didn't look up, didn't speak, but somehow they all knew they were being watched. "We should leave," Lynn whispered, her voice betraying rare anxiety. "Something's happening to the energy field." On her scanner, the gentle pulse they had been monitoring was changing, becoming erratic. Below, an elderly human, Jack, opened his eyes slowly, looking directly toward their hiding spot despite the camouflage technology. "We've been compromised," Rax decided. "Retreat to the surface." As the aliens withdrew, Tom also opened his eyes, feeling a strange sensation he'd never experienced before. Around the chamber, dozens of others were doing the same, their perfect synchronization broken for the first time in memory. Jack's weathered hand found Tom's arm, gripping it with surprising strength. "It has begun," the old man whispered, breaking the silence of the ceremony. "They have come just as the ancients predicted." "Who's come?" Tom asked, his voice sounding strange after hours of silence. "The catalyst." Jack's eyes shone with an emotion Tom couldn't identify. Fear. Excitement. "For 300 years we've maintained the lock. Now they've turned the key." Across the chamber, a young woman named Kate, wearing the insignia of the Earth Defense Corps, was already on her feet, speaking urgently into a communication device. Others were standing too, some looking confused, others with expressions of grim determination. On the empty pedestal at the center, a faint blue glow had appeared, growing stronger by the second. "What's happening?" Tom asked, feeling an odd pressure building behind his eyes. Jack stood, pulling Tom up with him. "The silent worship was never just a ceremony, boy. It was a containment protocol." He looked around at the growing chaos as more people broke formation. "And now it's failing." Above them, racing back to their ship, the 3 aliens didn't yet realize what they had done. They had not merely observed a human ritual, they had disrupted the careful balance that had kept humanity's greatest power dormant for centuries. The final weapon was beginning to wake. The morning after the disruption, chaos reigned in the underground complex. People who had maintained perfect discipline for generations now moved frantically through the corridors, their voices creating a constant buzz that had not been heard in these halls for centuries. Tom followed Jack through the crowd, struggling to keep up with the old man's surprisingly quick pace. His head throbbed with a strange pressure that had started during the ceremony and hadn't stopped since. "Jack, please. You need to explain what's happening," Tom called out. The old keeper finally stopped at a massive stone door marked with ancient symbols. He pressed his palm against it and the door slid open with a low rumble. "In here," Jack said, before the others come looking. The room beyond was small, but filled with technology that looked far more advanced than anything Tom had seen in the settlements. Screens flickered to life as they entered, displaying data streams and what appeared to be brain scans. "Sit," Jack ordered, pointing to a chair in the center of the room. "I need to check your levels." "My levels of what?" Tom asked, but he sat anyway. The chair immediately molded to his form, and sensors emerged from the armrests, attaching themselves to his skin. Jack studied the readings with growing concern. "Just as I feared. Your dormant abilities are awakening faster than most, probably because you were sitting so close to me when the disruption occurred." "What abilities?" "Jack, you've never explained any of this." The old man sighed heavily, his shoulders slumping. "It was never supposed to be necessary. The silent worship was meant to continue forever, keeping the lock in place." He gestured at the screens. "Or at least until we were ready to use what we had contained." Jack tapped several controls, and a holographic display appeared between them. It showed Earth as it had been before the Great Conflict: sprawling cities, massive space stations, vessels traveling between planets. 300 years ago, humanity was expanding throughout the solar system. We were developing technologies that would soon allow us to reach nearby stars, Jack explained. During that research, scientists discovered something unexpected about human consciousness. The display changed, showing brain scans with unusual energy patterns, similar to what Tom had seen on the screens monitoring his own brain. Under certain conditions, the human mind can directly affect physical reality. Telekinesis, telepathy, energy manipulation, abilities that had been dismissed as myths suddenly had scientific basis, Jack continued. The discovery sparked a global race to develop these abilities as weapons. Tom stared at the images, struggling to process what he was hearing. "Are you saying humans are psychic?" "Potentially, yes. All humans carry the genetic capacity for these abilities, but they prove too dangerous, too unpredictable. When the first generation of enhanced humans lost control of their powers, the devastation was catastrophic." The hologram displayed scenes of destruction, cities crumbling, landscapes warped in impossible ways, and strange energy storms tearing across continents. "The survivors made a choice," Jack said solemnly. "Rather than let humanity destroy itself completely, they developed a genetic lock, a modification that suppressed these abilities in future generations. The silent worship was designed as a reinforcement of that lock, creating a psychic field that kept everyone's abilities dormant." Tom touched his temple where the pressure continued to build. "And now that lock is breaking." "Yes. The aliens who observed us, they call themselves the visitors, their presence disrupted the field just enough. And now," Jack gestured at the readings, "it's spreading." Across the complex, Kate Phillips strode purposefully toward the command center. As a captain in Earth's Defense Corps, she had been briefed on the true purpose of the silent worship, though even most military personnel believed it was merely tradition. The center was abuzz with activity when she arrived. Monitors showed disturbances at worship sites across the globe, all experiencing the same phenomenon that had begun in the main chamber. "Report," she demanded. Commander Harris, a stern woman with gray-streaked hair, turned from the main display. "It's happening everywhere. The suppression field is collapsing faster than our models predicted." "Casualties?" 12 so far, mostly older participants whose minds couldn't handle the sudden change. Hundreds more reporting headaches, nosebleeds, and disorientation. Kate nodded grimly. "And the visitors?" "Their ship remains in orbit. We've detected smaller craft entering the atmosphere. They're expanding their surveillance." "They don't know what they've done," Kate said, more to herself than to Harris. "No," the commander agreed, "but they'll find out soon enough." In a small farm 10 miles from the main complex, a young man named Marcus clutched his head in agony as plates and cups began to float around his kitchen. He had never attended the silent worship, claiming it was outdated superstition. Now he screamed as the pressure in his skull built beyond bearing. "Make it stop," he cried to no one in particular. The windows of his home shattered outward. A nearby tree uprooted itself and hovered 6 feet above the ground. Similar scenes were playing out across the settlement. People who had never shown any unusual abilities suddenly found themselves overwhelmed by powers they couldn't control. On the observation deck of the distant Reach, Commander Rax watched the surveillance feeds with growing concern. "Something is happening to them," Lynn said, her voice tight with scientific curiosity. "The energy readings we detected are changing, intensifying." "Explain," Rax demanded. Lynn adjusted the displays. "The field that covered their gathering places is dissipating, but the energy isn't disappearing. It's transferring to individual humans. Each of them is becoming a localized energy source." Dren, who had remained skeptical, now leaned forward with interest. "Weapon potential?" "Unknown but significant," Lynn replied. "If these readings are accurate, some of these humans could potentially generate enough energy to—" An alarm cut her off. One of their surveillance drones had gone dark. "Show me the last transmission," Rax ordered. The screen displayed a human, Marcus, staring directly at the drone despite its stealth technology. His eyes glowed with an unnatural blue light. Then the feed cut to static. "Prepare a capture team," Rax decided. "I want specimens for study." Back in the monitoring room, Jack disconnected Tom from the sensors. "Your abilities are awakening faster than most, but you still have time to learn control," the old keeper said. "Others won't be so fortunate." "What happens to them?" Tom asked. "If they can't stabilize the energy flow, their minds burn out," Jack answered bluntly. "In the early days before the lock was created, thousands died this way." A soft chime sounded, and one of the screens changed to show Kate's face. "Jack, we have a situation," she said. "The aliens have landed capture teams. They're taking people, showing signs of awakening." Jack's face hardened. "They think they've discovered a new phenomenon to study. They don't realize they're dealing with something we've spent centuries containing. We need to move up the timetable," Kate insisted. "Start training the stable ones immediately." "It's too soon," Jack protested. "Most won't survive accelerated awakening." "We don't have a choice. The visitors are already adapting their tactics. They're using some kind of suppression technology on the captives." Tom stepped forward. "I want to help. Tell me what to do." Jack and Kate exchanged a look through the screen. "Bring him to the inner chamber," Kate finally said, "along with anyone else showing Class 3 stability or higher. We start now." As Jack led Tom through deepening levels of the complex, the young man noticed others joining them, people from the ceremony, all looking equally confused and frightened. "Where are we going?" Tom asked. "To the true heart of the silent worship," Jack replied. "The place where it all began, and where humanity's final weapon was forged." They descended a spiral staircase that seemed to go on forever, the air growing cooler with each step. Finally, they entered a perfectly circular chamber. At its center stood the object that should have been on the pedestal above, a crystalline sphere about the size of a human head, pulsing with blue-white energy. "What is it?" Tom whispered, feeling the pressure in his head intensify as he neared. "The sphere. We call it the Echo," Jack said. "It contains the psychic imprint of the first generation of enhanced humans, including their knowledge of how to control the abilities you're now developing." Kate stepped forward from the shadows, at the far side of the room. "And today," she said, "you're going to connect with it." Tom stared at the glowing sphere, both terrified and strangely drawn to it. "Will it hurt?" Jack placed a hand on his shoulder. "Yes, but the alternative is worse. The aliens who woke you won't stop with observation. They never do." "How do you know?" Kate's expression darkened. "Because they're not the first to find us, just the first to get this far." Around them, other confused, awakened humans were being led into the chamber by older keepers. The blue light from the Echo reflected in their eyes as the next phase of humanity's long-dormant plan began to unfold. Dawn broke over the settlement as 3 alien ships descended silently from the clouds. Their sleek, dark hulls absorbed light rather than reflected it, making them appear as moving shadows against the early morning sky. Inside the lead vessel, Commander Rax reviewed the capture priorities one final time. "Target individuals showing the strongest energy signatures," he instructed the strike teams. "Use the suppression nets, They disrupt the strange field these humans are generating. And remember, we need them alive. 20 visitor soldiers checked their equipment. Unlike the observation team, these warriors wore full combat armor, their normally gray skin completely covered by suits that could withstand extreme conditions. Each carried a specialized weapon designed to incapacitate rather than kill. The High Command is particularly interested in this development, Rax continued. These humans may possess an ability we've never encountered before. Understanding it could be critical to our expansion. Lynn, who had joined the capture team as scientific advisor, studied her scanner. The energy signatures are constantly shifting. Some are growing stronger by the hour. Then we move immediately, Rax decided, before they learn to use whatever power they're developing. The ship split up, each heading toward a different cluster of energy signatures. In the underground inner chamber, Tom's hands shook as he faced the glowing echo. 20 other awakened humans formed a circle around the crystalline sphere, all looking equally terrified and confused. Kate stood at a control panel making final adjustments. The process is simple in theory, she explained. The echo contains the combined knowledge of the first awakened. When you connect with it, you'll receive guidance on how to control your abilities. In theory? Someone asked nervously. Jack stepped forward. There are risks. The echo contains raw experiences, memories of both the wonders and horrors of the Great Conflict. Some minds reject the connection. And what happens then? Tom asked. The old keeper's face grew solemn. Psychic burnout, brain death in severe cases. A murmur of fear passed through the group. We wouldn't ask this of you if there were any alternative, Kate said firmly. But the aliens have already captured 7 awakened humans. We've tracked their ships taking people from the smaller settlements. They're hunting us. Jack nodded. And anyone they take will be studied, dissected, their abilities weaponized against the rest of humanity. Tom swallowed hard, but stepped closer, to the echo. I'll go first. Kate gave him a measuring look, then nodded. Place your hands on the sphere. Try to clear your mind. Don't resist what comes. The moment Tom's fingers touched the crystalline surface, his world exploded into countless fragments of memory and sensation. He was no longer in the chamber. He was everywhere, experiencing everything at once. A woman lifting an entire building with her mind to save trapped children. A man connecting telepathically with thousands, creating a network of shared consciousness. The horror of the First Psychic War, as minds tore into each other across continents. The agony of overextension, blood vessels rupturing as abilities pushed beyond safe limits. The careful research into genetic locks. The desperate plan to save humanity from itself. Tom screamed, but no sound came out. His physical body stood frozen, hands locked to the echo's surface as knowledge 3 centuries old poured into his mind. After what seemed like eternity, but was actually less than a minute, he collapsed to the floor, blood trickling from his nose. Tom! Jack rushed to his side, checking his pulse. Tom's eyes fluttered open, the irises now flecked with the same blue light that emanated from the echo. I understand now, he whispered. Before he could explain further, an alarm blared. Throughout the complex, Kate pressed a hand to her communication device. Report, visitor ships, came the urgent reply. 3 of them approaching from different directions. They're targeting the outlying residences first. They're hunting for awakened humans, Kate realized. Security teams to defensive positions. Get the untrained awakened to the lower levels. Tom struggled to his feet. I can help, he said, his voice stronger than before. I know how now. Kate looked skeptical. You've barely begun to understand your abilities. I don't have them all yet, but I understand the fundamentals, Tom insisted. The echo showed me. We can't just hide. We need to actively defend our people. Jack studied, his former apprentice with pride and concern. What did you see, Tom? Everything. The history, the techniques, the warnings. Tom's eyes glowed brighter. And I saw what happens if the visitors get what they want. In the small farming community, on the outskirts of the main settlement, Marcus hid in his cellar as the alien ship hovered directly over his home. His headache had subsided, replaced by a strange clarity. Objects no longer floated randomly around him. Now they moved according to his will. When the cellar door burst open, he was ready. Two visitor soldiers in full combat gear descended the stairs, scanning devices leading them directly to him. Human detected, one reported through its communication system. Strong energy signature. Marcus stepped out of the shadows. Looking for me? The soldiers raised their weapons, strange devices that looked like nets made of pulsing energy. Marcus raised his hand. The weapons flew upward, smashing into the ceiling. The soldiers charged, but Marcus felt the power surging through him. With a thought, he lifted both aliens off the ground. They struggled in midair, their armor suddenly seeming heavy and constricting. "You shouldn't have come here," Marcus said, surprised by the coldness in his own voice. He tightened his mental grip. The armor began to buckle inward. Before he could finish the deadly squeeze, a voice cut through his concentration. "Stop!" Tom stood at the top of the cellar stairs, Jack and two security officers behind him. "Don't kill them," Tom said, descending slowly. "We need information." Marcus hesitated, then lowered the aliens to the ground, still holding them immobile. "They were going to take me." "I know. They've taken others already." Tom approached one of the soldiers and placed his hand on its helmet. He closed his eyes, concentrating. Images flowed into his mind. The ship above. Other capture teams spread across the region, racks giving orders, the high command demanding specimens. And deeper, something more disturbing. Memories of other worlds, conquered, other species subjugated or eliminated. Tom pulled his hand away, gasping. They've done this 17 times before. Invaded developing worlds, taken what they wanted, eliminated any resistance. He looked at Jack. They were planning the same for Earth even before they discovered the awakenings. Jack nodded grimly. Then we've awakened just in time. A loud crash shook the farmhouse above them. Kate's voice came through their communication devices. "Visitor. Reinforcements incoming. Fall back to the complex." Marcus looked panicked. "There are more people in the surrounding farms. They'll be captured." "We need to coordinate," Tom said firmly. "I can help organize a defense, but not if we're scattered and picked off one by one." Jack put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Trust him. What he experienced with the Echo, it's given him insights the rest of us don't have yet." After a moment's hesitation, Marcus nodded. He released his mental hold on the two soldiers who collapsed unconscious to the floor. "What about them?" he asked. "Leave them," Tom replied. "They'll report what they saw. It might make the others hesitate before attacking again." As they rushed back toward the main complex, more ships appeared in the sky above. The hunt was intensifying. On the bridge of the distant reach, Commander Rax received the reports with growing concern. 4 capture teams lost contact, Lynn summarized. The last transmission showed a human demonstrating telekinetic abilities far beyond what we anticipated. "Impossible," Dren scoffed. "No species develop such abilities naturally." "This wasn't natural," Rax said quietly. "Remember the chambers, the ceremonies? They've been containing this power, controlling it." He turned to his weapons officer. "Prepare orbital strikes on the largest underground complexes. If we can't capture this power, we must eliminate it." Lynn looked alarmed. "The High Command ordered specimens, not elimination." "The situation has changed," Rax replied coldly. "These humans are not merely developing abilities. They already know how to use them. That suggests this is not a new discovery, but a deliberate defensive activation." "You mean they knew we were coming?" Dren asked incredulously. "Not us specifically, but they were prepared for something." Rax studied the planet below with new respect and caution. "Begin the bombardment in 1 hour. Target their largest underground structures first." As the visitors prepared their attack deep within the Earth complex, Tom stood once more before the Echo. This time, he wasn't alone. 20 more awakened humans had successfully connected with the ancient knowledge source, their eyes now bearing the same blue flecks as his. "They're planning an orbital strike," Tom announced. the information coming to him through a new awareness that extended beyond normal senses. "We don't have much time." Kate looked grim. "Our conventional defenses can't stop their ships." "No," Tom agreed. "But we can." He turned to the circle of newly awakened humans. "It's time to form the first link in 300 years. Jack's eyes widened. "The link? Are you certain? That's the most dangerous technique. It's what led to the catastrophes of the Great Conflict." "It's also our only hope," Tom replied. "Together, our minds united, we might generate enough power to create a shield." Around the chamber, the awakened looked at each other with mixture of fear and determination. None of them had sought this power, this responsibility. But now, as humanity's final weapon began to truly awaken, they had no choice but to master it, or perish in the attempt. The inner chamber hummed with energy as Tom arranged the awakened humans in a precise formation around the echo. 24 individuals stood in concentric circles, their faces tense with concentration. At the center, Tom placed his hands on the crystalline sphere, which now pulsed with light and rhythm with his heartbeat. "The link isn't just combining our abilities," he explained, his voice steady despite the pressure building inside his skull. "It's creating a unified consciousness, a collective mind greater than the sum of its parts." Kate watched from the edge of the room, arms crossed over her chest. As a military officer, she understood conventional warfare, but this was beyond her experience. "How dangerous is this really, Jack?" she whispered to the old keeper beside her. Jack's weathered face was grim. "The first awakened created the link to defend Earth during the Great Conflict. It worked, but the power it generated warped reality itself. Some of the participants were lost completely, their minds burned away by the energy they channeled." "And you're letting Tom attempt this?" she hissed. "Not letting, trusting," Jack corrected. "The knowledge he gained from the echo is more complete than anything I could teach him. He understands the risks better than I do now." In the center of the formation, Tom closed his eyes. "Everyone, clear your minds. Focus on my voice. The link begins with surrender. Let go of your individual concerns and connect to the person on your right and left." A visible wave of blue energy began to flow between the participants, connecting them like a web of light. "Now reach deeper," Tom continued. "Find the core of your awakened ability and open it to the others." The blue web brightened, pulsing with increased power. Several participants gasped as the mental barriers between them began to dissolve. Marcus, standing in the inner circle, suddenly stiffened. "I can feel everyone," he said in wonder. "Their thoughts, their emotions." "Stay focused," Tom warned. "Don't get lost in the connection. Remember your anchor." Before the ceremony, he had instructed each participant to hold firmly to a personal memory, something that defined their individual identity. This anchor would prevent them from being completely absorbed into the collective consciousness. As the link strengthened, Tom's awareness expanded exponentially. He could sense every person in the complex, then everyone in the settlement above. Further still, his mind stretched outward, touching the consciousness of awakened humans across the continent. Miles away, people who had never attended a silent worship suddenly felt a gentle presence in their minds, inviting connection. And above it all, he sensed the visitor ships, cold points of alien intelligence preparing to rain destruction from orbit. "They're targeting the main chamber," Tom announced, his voice now overlaid with multiple harmonic tones as the link spoke through him. "Weapons charging, impact in 7 minutes." Kate pressed her communication device. "All personnel, emergency, evacuation protocol. Move to secure levels 5 through 8 immediately." But Jack remained still, watching Tom with growing amazement. "That won't be necessary," he said softly. "What are you talking about? Their weapons will punch right through." "Watch," Jack interrupted, pointing to the ceiling. Above them, visible, through the link's shared perception, a dome of blue energy was forming over the entire complex, extending several miles in each direction. It shimmered like heat waves over desert sand, nearly transparent but undeniably present. "A shield," Kate whispered. Jack nodded. "The first defense of the awakened." On the bridge of the distant reach, alarms blared as sensors detected the sudden energy surge. "What is that?" Rax demanded, staring at the view screen where a faint blue dome had appeared over their primary target. Lynn worked frantically at her console. "Energy shield of unknown composition. It's like nothing in our database. The power readings are..." She hesitated, rechecking her instruments. "Off the scale. Can our weapons penetrate it?" "Unknown, Commander, but the shield is expanding rapidly." Dren watched with growing unease as the blue dome spread outward, covering more territory with each passing second. "Launch the strike now, before it grows stronger." Rax hesitated only briefly before giving the order. "Fire." Brilliant beams of concentrated energy lanced down from the visitor ships, striking the blue shield with tremendous force. The impact created spectacular corona effects, ripples of power cascading across the dome's surface, but the shield held. "Impossible," Dren whispered. "No planetary defense should withstand a full orbital barrage." Lynn's voice was tight with scientific excitement despite the situation. "Commander, I'm detecting a new phenomenon. The shield isn't just blocking our attack, it's absorbing the energy and growing stronger." Rax's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession. "Cease fire immediately." But the order came too late. The blue shield pulsed once brightly, then sent a massive surge of energy back along the weapon's paths. The feedback overloaded the visitor's systems, causing explosions across the smaller ships and severe damage to the distant reach. "Emergency protocols," Rax ordered as his bridge filled with smoke and warning alerts. "Withdraw to safe orbit." As the damaged visitor fleet retreated, the blue shield continued to expand, now covering hundreds of square miles and growing. In the inner chamber, the link had reached its full potential. 24 minds functioned as one, with Tom serving as the focal point. Through their combined consciousness, they perceived far beyond normal human limits, and what they saw astonished them. "The markers," Tom said, his voice reverberating with the power of the collective. "They're everywhere." The link's awareness had expanded to cosmic scale, allowing them to perceive something hidden in plain sight. Ancient warning beacons placed around Earth's solar system and dozens of nearby stars. "Placed by who?" Kate asked, her voice seeming distant and small compared to the harmonics of the link. "By us," Jack answered, understanding dawning on his weathered face. "By humanity, before the lock." Through the link, Tom accessed deeper memories stored within the echo, knowledge that had been hidden from even the keepers for centuries. "Earth wasn't always our only home," the link spoke through him. "Before the Great Conflict, humanity had spread to nearby star systems. When the psychic abilities first manifested, when the destruction began, outposts were established throughout local space. Images flowed through the collective consciousness, massive generation ships leaving Earth, colonies established on distant worlds, networks of psychic communication spanning light years. The silent worship wasn't just containing our abilities," Tom continued. "It was preserving them, keeping the connection alive but dormant until needed. The genetic lock wasn't meant to be permanent. It was a safety measure, designed to be released when humanity faced an existential threat." Kate struggled to comprehend the scale of what she was hearing. "You're saying we were once an interstellar civilization with psychic powers?" "More than that," Jack said, old pieces finally fitting together in his mind. "We were the protectors of this region of space." The link showed them more. Other species, peaceful exchanges, cooperative ventures across dozens of worlds. And then the arrival of the first aggressive species, similar to the visitors, but more primitive in their technology. "The Awakened defended not just Earth but all allied worlds," Tom explained, the link's voice growing stronger. "But the power was too great, too tempting. Some began to see themselves as gods rather than guardians." The images darkened. Worlds, torn apart by psychic warfare, reality itself warped by unchecked power. Earth, the origin point of the ability, suffered the worst as factions fought for control. "The survivors made a choice," Tom said. "To save what remained, they created the genetic lock and the silent worship. They established the keepers to maintain the tradition until the day the ability would be needed again. And they placed warning markers, Jack added, telling any who could read them that this region of space was protected, that the sleeping giants should be left in peace. Marcus, still part of the link but able to speak individually, looked awed. The visitors ignored the warnings, or couldn't read them, Kate suggested. If the markers were designed for psychic perception, they were, Tom confirmed. The visitors lack even the most basic psychic sensitivity. They saw the markers but perceived them as natural phenomena, not messages. Jack turned to Kate, his expression grave. Do you understand what this means? The visitors' attack didn't just awaken our defense mechanism, it restored our connection to our true history, our true purpose. Before Kate could respond, Tom suddenly stiffened, the link's energy flaring around him. The visitors are contacting their high command, he announced. They're calling for reinforcements, a full invasion fleet. Alarm spread through the room, but Jack stepped forward, placing a weathered hand on Tom's shoulder. There's more in the echo, isn't there? He asked quietly. More knowledge, more power. Tom nodded slowly, the blue light in his eyes intensifying. The full awakening protocol, it would break the remaining genetic locks worldwide, triggering awakening in every human with the capacity. The casualties would be catastrophic, Kate protested. You said yourself many minds can't handle sudden awakening. True, Jack acknowledged. But what choice do we have? The visitors won't stop with one attempt if their entire fleet comes. Tom's expression became distant as the link processed possibilities, calculating outcomes with the combined intelligence of 24 enhanced minds. There is another way, he said finally. A controlled global awakening, guided by those of us already connected. Is that possible? Kate asked. Difficult, but yes, Tom replied. The First Awakened designed fail-safes for exactly this scenario, but it will require sacrifice. He turned to Jack, his expression somber. Someone must serve as the conduit for the initial pulse, channeling enough energy to reach every human simultaneously. Understanding dawned on Jack's face, and no one could survive being that conduit. Tom nodded slowly. The echo contains the procedure. A single keeper must connect directly to its core, becoming a living amplifier for the awakening signal. I'll do it, Jack said without hesitation. It's what I've prepared for my entire life, though I never knew it until now. Kate started to protest, but Jack silenced her with a raised hand. My time is nearly done anyway, and this is the purpose of all our generations of keeping the silence. He smiled sadly. To speak again, when the time was right. As the link maintained the shield against potential further attacks, preparations began for humanity's full reawakening. The final weapon, not a device of destruction but the collective consciousness of an entire species, was about to be completely unleashed after 3 centuries of slumber. And high above Earth, the visitor fleet regrouped, still unaware that they had not merely disturbed a primitive religious ritual, but had triggered the return of the greatest power their kind had ever encountered. 3 days after the failed orbital strike, Earth appeared deceptively calm from space. The blue shield had contracted, now covering only the major underground complexes. To the approaching visitor reinforcements, it might have seemed that the initial threat was contained. They were gravely mistaken. In the deepest level of the main complex, preparations for the global awakening reached their final stage. The inner chamber had been transformed, with the echo now suspended above a circular platform where Jack stood alone. Concentric rings of awakened humans surrounded him, their minds linked in a vast supporting network. Tom stood at the innermost circle, the strain of maintaining the link evident on his face. 48 minds now connected through him, twice the original number as more humans successfully underwent the awakening process. The visitor fleet will reach Earth orbit in approximately 6 hours, he announced, the link's harmonic voice echoing through the chamber. 7 capital ships, 22 support vessels. Their weapons are significantly more powerful than the initial attack force. Kate studied the tactical display projected onto one wall of the chamber. Even with our conventional defenses and the shield, we can't stop a fleet that size. We don't need to stop them, Jack said calmly. We just need time for the protocol to complete. The Old Keeper looked different now, more vibrant despite his years, his eyes glowing with the same blue light that marked all the awakened. He had spent decades maintaining the silent worship, never fully understanding its purpose. Now, in his final hours, he had found perfect clarity. The echo is ready, he said. The amplification circuits are calibrated. Once activated, the pulse will reach every human on Earth simultaneously. Tom stepped forward, breaking formation briefly to stand before his mentor. Jack, there must be another way. The link is growing stronger. Maybe if we wait, gather more awakened. Jack shook his head. The calculations are clear. We need a global response to face this threat. He placed a hand on Tom's shoulder. This was always my destination, though I didn't know it. The Keepers have prepared for generations, passing down the knowledge, maintaining the silent worship. Now we understand why. Tom embraced the old man, fighting back tears. I'll make sure it wasn't in vain. I know you will. Jack stepped away, moving to the center of the platform. Begin the sequence. Kate took her position at the control system. Despite not being awakened herself, her military training made her the ideal operator for the technical aspects of the protocol. Energy channeling systems online, bioconnectors active. The echo began to pulse more rapidly, its light synchronizing with Jack's heartbeat. Fine tendrils of blue energy extended from the sphere, connecting to specific points on Jack's body: forehead, throat, chest, palms. Neural interface established, Kate reported. Power levels rising. Jack closed his eyes, his face serene despite the enormous energies beginning to flow through him. I can feel them, he whispered. All of them. Every human mind on Earth. Final authorization required, Kate said, looking to Tom. There was a moment of hesitation, a final acknowledgement of what they were about to unleash. Then Tom nodded. Proceed. Kate pressed her palm against the activation plate. Global Awakening Protocol initiated. The echo flared with blinding light as Jack's body arched backward, becoming a living conduit for powers that had been dormant for centuries. Blue energy coursed through him, amplified 1,000-fold, then radiated outward in an expanding sphere that passed through walls, earth, and ocean, as if they were not there. Around the world, humans stopped in mid-motion as the wave touched them. In fields and factories, in homes and schools, 7 billion people simultaneously experienced the same momentary connection, a gentle but insistent awakening, calling forth abilities long suppressed by the genetic lock. Not all would develop full abilities. The Echo's designers had been wiser this time, creating safeguards that would limit awakening based on individual capacity. But everyone would feel the connection, the awareness that humanity was more than they had believed. In the chamber, Jack's physical form began to lose cohesion, turning translucent as the energies consumed him. Still he stood, channeling the power until the pulse had completed its global journey. It is done, he said, his voice no longer coming from his dissolving body, but resonating directly in the minds of everyone present. Then, with a final smile, Jack vanished entirely, his consciousness merging with the echo itself, becoming part of the collective knowledge that would guide the newly awakened. Tom felt the connection break, a sensation like a great weight lifted from his shoulders. The link remained, but Jack's presence within it was gone. Kate looked up from her console, tears streaking her face despite her military composure. Energy pulse complete, global distribution at 97% effectiveness. And Jack? Marcus asked softly. He's everywhere now. Tom answered, touching the echo gently. Part of all of us. There was no time for further mourning. The tactical display flashed with new warnings as the visitor fleet entered final approach. There, moving into attack formation, Kate reported. Weapons systems charging. They'll be in range in 19 minutes. Tom straightened, facing the gathered awakened. It's time to show them who we really are. Commander Rack stood on the bridge of the flagship Sovereign Will, a vessel 10 times the size of his damaged scout ship. Around him, the military might. of the visitor empire prepared to subjugate yet another world. Scans confirm the defensive shield is limited to these regions, reported the tactical officer, highlighting several areas on the global display. Our combined firepower should overwhelm them quickly. Admiral Vex, the fleet commander, nodded in satisfaction. Begin the attack sequence. Target their shield generators first, then their population centers. Standard conquest protocol. Rax hesitated. Admiral, I recommend caution. These humans have demonstrated abilities we don't fully understand. Your failure to capture specimens has been noted, Commander. Vex replied coldly. Stand aside and observe how a proper military operation is conducted. As the fleet moved into firing position, something unexpected appeared on their sensors. Thousands of small energy signatures rising from Earth's surface. What are those? Vex demanded. The sensor officer adjusted his instruments. Impossible. They appear to be humans, Admiral. Flying without vehicles. Outside the viewports they could see them now, glowing figures ascending through the atmosphere, surrounded by blue auras that protected them from the vacuum of space. Thousands of awakened humans, their abilities now fully active, rising to meet the invasion fleet. Open fire, Vex ordered, panic edging into his voice. The massive weapons of the visitor fleet discharged, sending destructive energy toward the approaching humans. But the beams never reached their targets. Each blast was caught, contained, and redirected by telekinetic barriers generated by the awakened. Among the defenders, Tom floated at the center of a formation that mirrored the Yao link structure below. His consciousness extended through the network of minds, coordinating their response with precision that would have been impossible for individuals acting alone. They rely on technology. His thoughts flowed through the link. We are the technology. The awakened responded as one, extending their combined telekinetic grip to the nearest visitor ships. Metal groaned as invisible forces compressed hull plating. Engines sputtered and died as their internal components were gently but firmly disassembled. On the flagship's bridge, systems failed in cascading sequence. Even the artificial gravity fluctuated, leaving the visitors floating helplessly. What is happening? Vex demanded, clinging to his command chair. Rax watched through the viewport as the awakened humans approached, their expressions not angry or vengeful, but determined. They're showing us the difference between conquest and defense, he said softly. This is why the markers were placed. What markers? What are you talking about? Vex snapped. Before Rax could answer, the bridge view screen activated on its own. Tom's face appeared, his eyes glowing with blue light. This ends now, he said, his voice somehow transmitting despite the ship's communications being offline. Your invasion fleet is disabled. You will not be harmed, but you will leave this system immediately. Vex snarled in defiance. The visitor empire does not retreat. This planet will be... His voice cut off as Tom raised a hand, not choking or harming the Admiral, simply preventing sound from leaving his mouth. You misunderstand, Tom continued calmly. This is not a negotiation. Through the link, we have accessed your navigation systems. Your ships are already being redirected home. Indeed, across the fleet, engines were reactivating, turning the massive vessels away from Earth. No amount of manual override from the crews had any effect. When you return, Tom said, you will deliver a message to your high command. This region of space is protected. It always has been. The markers you ignored were warnings, placed by humanity centuries ago when we first ventured among the stars. Tom's image seemed to grow, filling the screen. We are not a primitive species you can conquer. We are the guardians of this sector, and we have awakened. The screen went dark as the flagship, along with the entire visitor fleet, accelerated away from Earth at speeds their engines shouldn't have been capable of generating. 1 month later, Tom stood on a hillside overlooking the main settlement. Below, the world was transforming. New structures rose without construction equipment as awakened humans used telekinesis to place materials. Others used their abilities to heal the land, accelerate crop growth, or generate clean energy. Kate joined him, wearing her military uniform but with a new insignia. the echo symbol, signifying her role as liaison between conventional forces and the awakened. "The satellite network is complete," she reported. "We can now monitor the warning markers across 50 light-years." Tom nodded. "And the old outposts?" "We've received signals from 3 so far. It seems there were survivors, human colonies that maintained their own version of the silent worship all this time." Jack would have been pleased to know he wasn't alone in his vigil, Tom said softly. Kate looked up at the night sky, where a faint blue shimmer, invisible to normal eyes but clear to the awakened, marked the extended protective field now surrounding Earth's solar system. "What happens now?" she asked. "The visitors won't be the last to come." "No," Tom agreed, "but we'll be ready. Not as conquerors. Jack was right about the dangers of that path, but as guardians, the role we were meant to fulfill before the great conflict." In the settlement below, the daily silent worship continued, but with a difference. Instead of maintaining silence to suppress their abilities, the participants now used the time to refine their control, to connect with the growing network of awakened minds across the planet and beyond. "We've been given a second chance," Tom said, "to use these gifts properly, to become what we were meant to be." He turned to Kate with a smile. "And it all began because some aliens entered the silent worship and woke humanity's final weapon," she finished. But they both knew that the weapon wasn't the psychic abilities themselves. It was what the abilities enabled: connection, understanding, and the restoration of humanity's forgotten legacy among the stars. As night deepened, more awakened humans joined them on the hillside, their eyes reflecting the blue light of distant suns where human consciousness would soon reach once again, not to conquer, but to reconnect with their cosmic heritage. And, somewhere within the collective awareness that now spanned the globe, Jack's consciousness continued to guide them, his lifetime of keeping the silence finally rewarded with the universe of voices he had helped to awaken. Tom Miller wiped sweat from his forehead as he tightened the last bolt on the power generator. The machine hummed back to life, its blue lights casting shadows across the maintenance room. 6 hours of work, but worth every minute. This generator provided power to a quarter of New Haven Colony's living spaces, including the apartment he shared with his daughter Emma. "All fixed, boss?" asked Jack, the junior technician who had been passing Tom tools for the past 2 hours. "Should hold. For another month at least," Tom replied, putting his wrench back into his toolbox. "These old T-90 models weren't built for the dust storms we get here." The colony of New Haven sat on a distant planet, rich with rare minerals. From space, it looked like a collection of white domes and towers spreading across reddish plains. The colony had been established 15 years ago, and Tom had been among the first wave of settlers. Back then he had come with his wife Mary, both of them young engineers looking for adventure and good pay. Now, at 42, Tom was a widowed father with graying temples and hands permanently stained with machine oil. "You heading home now?" Jack asked, helping Tom gather his equipment. Tom checked his watch. "Need to pick up Emma from her friend's place first. It's her 8th birthday tomorrow." Jack smiled. "Got something special planned?" "Cake from the community kitchen and a telescope. She's been talking about stars nonstop since her class visited the observatory deck last month." Tom's face softened when he spoke about his daughter. Since Mary died 2 years ago from a lung infection, Emma had become his whole world. Outside, the maintenance building, New Haven's artificial day was ending. The colony's light systems were shifting from bright white to a softer orange glow, mimicking an Earth sunset. The main dome's climate systems created a pleasant evening breeze. If you ignored the red sky visible through the transparent sections of the dome, it almost felt like a small town back on Earth. Tom walked along the curved path that led to the residential area. Workers were returning from their shifts, some nodding to Tom as they passed. Everyone knew everyone in a colony of just 12,000 people. "Miller," a voice called. Tom turned to see Commander Wilson jogging toward him. Wilson oversaw colony, security, and his usual calm face now showed worry lines. "Commander, what's up?" Tom asked, immediately concerned. Wilson didn't seek people out after shifts without reason. Wilson lowered his voice. Nothing official yet, but we've been getting strange readings on the long-range scanners. Thought you should know since you helped install those systems when you first arrived. What kind of readings? Tom asked, his engineer's mind already working through possibilities. Energy signatures that don't match any known ship types in our database. They appear and disappear at random. The official line is sensor malfunctions, but Wilson trailed off. But you don't believe that, Tom finished for him. Wilson shook his head. I've been running security for 15 years across 3 colonies. Sensor ghosts don't behave like this. Have you reported it up the chain? Sent a message to Alliance headquarters 3 days ago. Still waiting for a response. Wilson sighed. Just keep your emergency kit updated. That's all I'm saying. Tom nodded, feeling a cold knot form in his stomach. New Haven was important to the Galactic Alliance for its mineral production, but it was also remote. Help was at least 5 days away at maximum speed. I appreciate the heads up, Tom said. I'll check the system logs tomorrow if you want a second opinion. Wilson clapped him on the shoulder. Thanks. And hey, I heard it's Emma's birthday tomorrow. Tell her Uncle Wilson says happy birthday. After Wilson left, Tom walked faster toward the residential sector. The playful sounds of children reached him before he turned the corner to see the small community park, where Emma often played with her friends. 5 children were taking turns on the swing set, while 2 parents watched. Nearby, Emma spotted him immediately. Dad, she called, her voice carrying across the park. She jumped off the swing and ran toward him, her brown curls bouncing around her face. She looked so much like Mary that sometimes it made Tom's chest hurt. Hey, Space Cadet, he said, kneeling to catch her in a hug. Ready to head home? Emma nodded against his shoulder. Mrs. Lee made cookies and I helped. She pulled back to look at him with wide blue eyes. Did you fix the big machine? Sure did. Power's all good for your birthday. Tomorrow. Tom stood, taking her small hand in his. Thank you for watching her, he called to Mrs. Lee, who waved back with a smile. As they walked home through the dimming light of the colony, Emma chatted about her day, the science lesson about planets, the drawing she made of their home, the game of tag that ended when Billy fell and scraped his knee. Tom listened, asking questions at the right moments, but part of his mind kept returning to Wilson's warning. He looked up at the clear dome above them, at the unfamiliar stars becoming visible as darkness fell. Somewhere out there, something might be watching. Something unknown. Their apartment was on the 3rd floor of Building C, a simple 2-bedroom unit with basic furnishings. What made it special were the small touches. Emma's drawings on the walls, the plant collection Mary had started that Tom carefully maintained, the family photos displaying happier times. After dinner, as Emma was getting ready for bed, Tom checked their emergency kit. It contained 3 days of food and water, basic medical supplies, emergency blankets, and communication devices. He added extra batteries and his old service pistol from his time in colony security before Emma was born. Dad? Emma stood in the doorway of the storage closet, already in her star-patterned pajamas. What are you doing? Tom quickly closed the kit. Just making sure everything's where it should be, honey. Ready for your story? Later, after reading Emma's favorite book about a brave space explorer, Tom tucked her into bed. Excited for tomorrow? He asked, smoothing her hair. Will we have chocolate cake? Emma asked sleepily. The biggest one Mrs. Parker at the kitchen can make, Tom promised. And after school I have a special present for you. Is it a puppy? Emma asked hopefully. Tom laughed. No puppies on New Haven yet, Space Cadet. The Colony Council is still voting on bringing animals from Earth. Then what is it? She persisted. It's a surprise. That's how presents work. He kissed her forehead. Sleep tight. After Emma fell asleep, Tom sat in the small living room with the lights dimmed. He accessed his tablet and linked to the colony's main system using his engineer clearance. The sensor logs showed exactly what Wilson had described. Strange energy spikes appearing and disappearing. They didn't match any known ship signatures in the database. A chill ran through him as he noticed a pattern. The signals were getting stronger and occurring more frequently. Whatever was causing them was getting closer. Tom wanted to believe it was just a sensor issue, but his gut told him otherwise. He sent a message to Wilson. "Check the logs. We should run a full system diagnostic tomorrow." Before going to bed, Tom looked in on Emma one more time. Her face was peaceful in sleep, one arm wrapped around her favorite stuffed bear. Tom felt the fierce protectiveness that had defined his life since becoming a father. "Nothing's going to hurt you," he whispered. "Not while I'm around." As he prepared for bed, Tom didn't know that tomorrow would never come as planned, that the strange readings would materialize into something far worse than anyone had imagined, that Emma's birthday would be remembered not for cake and presents, but for what would become known across the galaxy as the New Haven Massacre, and that before the sun set again, Tom Miller would make a choice that would save his daughter's life and change the course of history. Tom woke to the sound of his alarm at 0500 hours, just as he did every morning. The apartment was quiet except for the soft hum of the air recycling system. He rolled out of bed, stretched his tired muscles, and headed for the shower. The hot water was a luxury on New Haven, limited to 5 minutes per person per day, but it helped wash away the lingering fatigue from yesterday's generator repair. As he dressed in his standard gray maintenance uniform, Tom checked his tablet. No new messages from Commander Wilson about the strange readings, but there was a notification about increased atmospheric disturbances. The colony's weather control systems were reporting unusual patterns that the computers couldn't explain. "Probably just another dust storm brewing," Tom muttered to himself, though he didn't quite believe it. He moved quietly to the kitchen and began preparing a special birthday breakfast for Emma, pancakes shaped like stars, a rare treat that required him to use a portion of their monthly sugar ration. As the first pancake sizzled in the pan, he heard Emma's bedroom door open. "Dad, are you making pancakes?" Her voice was still sleepy, but excitement quickly took over as she spotted the batter and the star-shaped mold. "Happy birthday, Space." "Cadet." Tom turned and scooped her up in a hug, spinning her around once before setting her down at the small kitchen table. 8 years old today? You're getting too big." Emma giggled. "I'm still the smallest in my class. Billy says I'm like a space mouse." "Well, space mice are smart and quick," Tom replied, flipping a pancake. "And they fit into small places where bigger creatures can't go. That's an advantage." As they ate breakfast, Tom noticed Emma kept looking at the wrapped package on the counter, her telescope carefully covered in colorful paper he had traded an extra work shift for. "Can I open it now?" she asked, her eyes wide with hope. Tom checked the time. "How about after school? We'll have the whole evening to set it up and look at the stars." Emma nodded, though she couldn't hide her disappointment. "Promise?" "Promise. And tonight is clear, perfect for stargazing." Tom ruffled her hair. "Now go get dressed or we'll be late." As Emma got ready for school, Tom checked his tablet again. 3 new maintenance requests had come in overnight, but what caught his attention was a message from Wilson. "System diagnostic shows no errors. Meeting at Aero 900 to discuss next steps." A knot formed in Tom's stomach. If the diagnostic showed the sensors were working properly, then the readings were real. Something was out there. Outside, the morning light filtered through the dome, casting a reddish glow over the colony. As Tom and Emma walked to her school, he noticed more security, personnel than usual patrolling the main pathways. They were trying to look casual, but Tom recognized the subtle signs of heightened alert, hands staying close to weapons, eyes constantly scanning, communication devices actively blinking. "Dad, look." Emma pointed upward. "The sky looks funny." Tom followed her gaze. Through the clear sections of the dome, the planet's red sky seemed darker than usual, with strange rippling patterns like waves on water. The colony's artificial weather shouldn't allow for such disturbances. "Probably just some high-altitude winds," he said, trying to keep his voice light. "The planet has crazy weather, remember? That's why we live in this big bubble." At the school entrance, Tom knelt down to give Emma a hug. "Have a great day, birthday girl. I'll pick you up right here at 1500 hours. "And then telescope time?" Emma asked. "And then telescope time." Tom confirmed with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. As Emma disappeared into the school building, the smile faded completely. Instead of heading directly to his first maintenance job, Tom changed course toward the colony's security center. He needed to know what Wilson had found. The security center was a hub of quiet activity when Tom arrived. Technicians monitored screens displaying various sections of the colony, while security officers moved with purpose between stations. Wilson stood at the central console, his face grim as he studied a holographic display. "That doesn't look like the face of someone with good news," Tom said as he approached. Wilson didn't even try to smile. Long-range scanners picked up something big. "Entering the system about an hour ago. It's on an approach vector to New Haven." "A ship?" Tom asked. "We think so, but it's not responding to identification requests, and it doesn't match any alliance or known independent vessel configurations." Tom looked at the holographic display. The object was represented by a red dot moving steadily toward the blue sphere that represented their planet. "How long until it reaches orbit?" Wilson's jaw tightened. 2 hours, maybe less if it accelerates. We've sent emergency signals to Alliance headquarters, but the nearest patrol ship is 3 days out. "What about our defenses?" Tom asked, though he already knew the answer. New Haven was a mining colony, not a military outpost. Its defenses were designed to handle small-scale threats like pirates or smugglers, not whatever this was. "We've got 4 orbital defense platforms and 2 armed shuttles," Wilson said. "We're preparing them now, but if this thing is hostile and well-armed..." He left the sentence unfinished. Tom felt cold all over. "What can I do?" "Check the emergency shelters in sectors 3 and 4. Make sure the air filtration and power systems are fully operational. If we need to evacuate people underground, those shelters need to be ready." Tom nodded. "I'll get a team together right away." As he turned to leave, Wilson caught his arm. "Tom, it's Emma's birthday today, isn't it?" "Yes," Tom replied quietly. "If things go south, family residential units will be the first to evacuate. I've already put her name on the priority list." Tom swallowed hard. "Thanks, Wilson." For the next hour, Tom led a small team checking the emergency shelters. They verified power connections, tested communication systems, and ensured the air filtration units were working properly. All the while, updates came through their tablets. The unidentified vessel was still approaching, still not responding to communications. At 10:30 hours, Tom was deep in Shelter 4's maintenance shaft when all their tablets beeped simultaneously. With a colony-wide alert, "Unidentified vessel has entered orbit. All non-essential personnel return to quarters. This is not a drill." "That's it," said Marta, one of the technicians working with Tom. "We're done here anyway. Systems check out." They were climbing out of the maintenance shaft when the first explosion shook the colony. The lights flickered and dust rained down from the ceiling. "What was that?" someone shouted. Tom's tablet lit up with a new message, this one marked with the highest priority. "Colony under attack. Orbital Defense Platform 1 destroyed. All personnel enact emergency protocols immediately." More explosions followed, closer this time. The overhead lights went out completely, replaced seconds later by the dim red glow of emergency lighting. "Door. Shelters," Tom ordered. "Get them open and ready to receive people." As his team rushed to follow orders, Tom checked his tablet again. The secure communication channel with security was filled with frantic messages. The unidentified ship had opened fire without warning, taking out the orbital defense platforms with frightening precision. Now it was launching smaller craft toward the surface. Tom's blood ran cold as he realized what was happening. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a show of force. This was an invasion. His thoughts immediately turned to Emma. The school was in Sector 2, at least a 20-minute run from his current position. He had to get to her. "Marta," he called, "you're in charge here. I need to get to the school." Before she could respond, another explosion rocked the shelter, this one close enough to make the floor buckle. Through the small observation window, Tom could see black smoke rising from buildings in the distance. The colony's emergency sirens finally began to wail, their haunting sound echoing through the corridors. Over the shelter's communication system, A calm voice that Tom recognized as belonging to the colony administrator began giving instructions. This is not a drill. New Haven is under attack. Proceed immediately to your designated emergency shelter. Parents, do not attempt to reach schools. Teachers will bring children to designated shelters. But Tom knew the chaos that would ensue. He knew that in the panic, children could be separated from their groups, left behind, or trapped. I have to go, he told Marta, already moving toward the exit. Tom, wait, she called after him. It's not safe out there. But Tom was already running, his heart pounding in his chest, as he sprinted through the corridors of New Haven, the colony he had helped build, the home he had made for himself and Emma after Mary died. One thought consumed him. Get to Emma. Nothing else matters. The peaceful birthday morning had turned into a nightmare, and New Haven's first contact with an alien species was not the moment of wonder that humanity had hoped for. It was an attack without warning, without mercy, and without explanation. And Tom Miller was running straight toward the heart of it. The world around Tom had transformed into chaos. What was once a peaceful colony now resembled a war zone. Smoke filled the air, making it difficult to breathe. Emergency lights flashed red, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The constant wail of sirens mixed with distant explosions and screams. Tom ran through the streets of New Haven with a single purpose: reach Emma. His lungs burned from the smoke, but he pushed forward, dodging falling debris and panicked colonists who ran in all directions. The school, he gasped to himself, just get to the school. A massive explosion to his right sent him sprawling to the ground. When he looked up, he saw that the colony's main power station was now a smoking crater. The artificial gravity flickered, momentarily, creating a sickening sensation of weightlessness before stabilizing again. Tom pulled himself up and continued running. Ahead, he could see 3 security officers directing people toward a shelter entrance. Miller, one of them called out, recognizing him. Where are you going? Shelter's this way. My daughter's at the school, Tom shouted back, not slowing down. The teachers are bringing the kids to shelter too, the officer yelled. But Tom had seen too much chaos already to trust that Emma would make it safely. He had to be sure. As he rounded the corner to the street where Emma's school stood, Tom froze. Through the smoke, he could see shadowy figures, moving among the panicked colonists. They were tall, at least 7 feet, with bodies covered in what looked like armored plates. They carried weapons unlike anything Tom had seen before, long devices that emitted pulses of blue energy. Void hunters, someone whispered beside him. Tom turned to see an older man pressed against the wall. I was on a freighter that barely escaped them 5 years ago. They strip colonies bare, resources, technology, people. They take it all. A cold fear gripped Tom's heart. These weren't just attackers. They were invaders who had come to strip New Haven of everything, including its people. The school, Tom said. I need to get to the school. The man pointed to a narrow alleyway. Service tunnel entrance halfway down there. It'll take you behind the school building. Don't go through the main street. They're rounding people up. There. Tom nodded his thanks and slipped into the alley. He found the service tunnel entrance, a small hatch in the ground that led to the maintenance passages running beneath the colony. As chief maintenance engineer, Tom knew these tunnels better than almost anyone. The tunnel was dark, lit only by emergency lights spaced too far apart. Tom moved as quickly as he dared, counting the junctions until he reached the one that would lead up to the school's utility room. When he emerged from the tunnel into the school building, an eerie silence greeted him. The hallways were deserted, chairs and backpacks scattered as if everyone had left in a hurry. Tom moved quietly, listening for any sound. Emma, he called softly. Anyone here? A small sound came from one of the classrooms, a shuffle and a quick intake of breath. Tom pushed the door open slowly, ready to run if he encountered one of the void hunters. Instead, he found a group of 20 children huddled in the corner with 2 adults, Mrs. Parker, Emma's teacher, and Mr. Reed, the school's maintenance man. Mrs. Parker had her finger to her lips, signaling for silence, but her eyes widened in recognition when she saw Tom. "Mr. Miller," she whispered. "Thank goodness." And then Emma was running to him, tears streaming down her face. Tom caught her, in his arms, holding her tightly against his chest. "Dad," she sobbed quietly. "I was so scared." The big booms came and the lights went out, and Mrs. Parker said we had to hide. "You did good, Space Cadet," Tom whispered, stroking her hair. "You did just right." He looked at Mrs. Parker. "What happened? Why aren't you at the shelter?" Mrs. Parker's face was pale with fear, but her voice remained steady. "We were about to leave when we saw them, those things. They were taking people, loading them onto some kind of transport. We came back inside to hide." Mr. Reed added, "I tried calling for help on the emergency channel, but communications are down. We were hoping someone would come looking for us." Tom nodded, thinking quickly. The main shelters aren't safe if these void hunters are rounding people up. We need to get to the emergency shuttles at the spaceport. The spaceport? Mrs. Parker looked doubtful. "That's on the other side of the colony." "It's our best chance," Tom insisted. "These creatures, void hunters, they don't just attack. They harvest everything, including people. We need to get off New Haven altogether." A distant explosion punctuated his words, making the children whimper in fear. "How do we get there?" Mr. Reed asked. "The main streets are too exposed." Tom thought for a moment. "The maintenance tunnels. They run throughout the colony. It'll be tight and dark, but we can make it." He knelt down to address the children, keeping his voice calm despite the fear threatening to overwhelm him. "Kids, we're going to play a game. We need to be quiet explorers going through secret tunnels. Like space mice, remember? Small and quiet and smart. Can you do that?" Wide-eyed faces nodded back at him. "Good. We'll go in a line. Mrs. Parker will lead. I'll be at the back. Hold hands and don't let go, no matter what." Emma tugged at his sleeve. "Dad, I'm scared." Tom looked into his daughter's eyes, so much like her mother's. "I know, Space Cadet, but you're brave too, and I'll be right behind you the whole time." They organized quickly. Mrs. Parker would lead, followed by the children in size order, with Mr. Reed in the middle and Tom bringing up the rear. Tom showed them the way back to the maintenance tunnel entrance he had used. "It's going to be dark," he warned as they prepared to enter. "Just follow the person in front of you and stay quiet." One by one, they climbed down into the tunnel. The smaller children needed help, and Tom lifted each one carefully through the hatch. Emma looked back at him before descending. "Just like exploring a cave on a new planet," Tom said with forced cheerfulness. Once everyone was inside, Tom closed the hatch behind them. The tunnel stretched before them, dimly lit by emergency lights that cast long shadows. "This way," Tom whispered, pointing left. "The tunnel branches after about 100 meters. We need to take the right fork, then the third left. That'll put us on a path to the spaceport." They moved slowly at first, the children frightened by the darkness and the strange echoing sounds. Twice they had to stop and wait in complete silence, as heavy footsteps passed overhead, void hunters patrolling the streets above. The tunnels were a maze, but Tom navigated confidently. After 20 minutes of careful progress, they reached a junction where the tunnel widened slightly. "We can rest here for a minute," Tom said, noticing the smaller children were struggling to keep up. "Everyone sit down and take slow, quiet breaths." As the group rested, Tom checked his tablet. It could no longer connect to the colony's main network, but it still showed a map of the maintenance tunnels. They were about halfway to the spaceport. "Mr. Miller," one of the boys whispered, "what are those things attacking us?" Tom hesitated, unsure how much to tell the frightened children. "They're called void hunters. They're not from around here." "Why are they hurting people?" another child asked. "Some beings don't know how to be kind," Mrs. Parker answered gently. "They only take what they want without asking." A sudden loud bang from above made everyone freeze. Dust rained down from the ceiling as heavy footsteps moved directly overhead. Tom motioned for absolute silence. The children huddled closer together, eyes wide with fear. The footsteps paused as if the void hunter was listening for something. Tom held his breath, acutely aware that the hatch 20 feet away could open at any moment. After what seemed like an eternity, the footsteps moved away. Tom released the breath he'd been holding and waited another minute before whispering, "We need to keep moving. Quickly now." They resumed their journey through the tunnels, moving faster despite their fatigue. Tom checked each junction carefully before allowing the group to proceed, wary of patrols that might have found their way into the maintenance system. "Dad," Emma whispered as they paused at another junction. "Are we going to be okay?" Tom squeezed her shoulder gently. "We're going to get through this together. All of us." The words had barely left his mouth when a distant explosion shook the tunnel, causing loose dirt and metal fragments to rain down on them. The children whimpered in fear. "It's okay," Tom said firmly. "The tunnels are designed to withstand much worse. We're safer down here than up there." They continued on, the sounds of destruction growing louder as they approached the spaceport area. When they finally reached the access hatch that would lead them to the spaceport's maintenance bay, Tom held up his hand for everyone to stop. "Need to check if it's safe," he whispered to Mrs. Parker. "Keep everyone here until I signal." "Be careful," she replied, her face etched with worry. Tom climbed the ladder to the hatch and pressed his ear against it. Hearing nothing suspicious, he carefully pushed it open a crack and peered out. The maintenance bay was dark except for emergency lighting. He could see part of the spaceport through the large windows, smoke rising from several buildings, but the landing pads themselves seemed intact. Most importantly, he could see an evacuation shuttle still docked at the nearest pad. Hope surged through him. They might actually make it. "It looks clear," he whispered down to the group. "I'll go first, then signal when it's safe to follow." Tom pushed the hatch fully open and climbed out into the maintenance bay. He scanned the area carefully, then motioned for the others to follow. One by one, the tired and frightened group emerged from the tunnel into the relative openness of the maintenance bay. The children looked around with wide eyes at the equipment and tools surrounding them. "The shuttle is just through those doors and across the tarmac," Tom explained, pointing. "It's about 100 meters of open ground. We'll need to move fast and stay together." He looked at each face in the group, the children trying to be brave, Mrs. Parker with her calm determination, Mr. Reed with his grim resolve, and Emma, his beautiful daughter whose birthday had turned into a nightmare. "We're almost there," Tom said. "Just a little further and we'll be safe." What he didn't say was that he had no idea what awaited them beyond New Haven, or if the shuttle would even have enough fuel to reach another colony. But right now, escape was all that mattered. Tom took a deep breath. "Ready?" Tom pressed his back against the maintenance bay wall, peering through the small window that overlooked the landing pad. The evacuation shuttle sat just 100 meters away, its white hull reflecting the emergency lights that flashed across the tarmac. It was their only hope of escape, but reaching it would mean crossing open ground. "What do you see?" Mr. Reed whispered, coming to stand beside Tom. "The shuttle's still there," Tom replied quietly. "Looks undamaged, but I don't see any movement, no ground crew, no other evacuees." "Is that good or bad?" Mrs. Parker asked, holding the hand of a small boy who couldn't stop trembling. Tom's expression was grim. Could mean the crew was captured, or that they're waiting inside for more survivors. He studied the landing area carefully, his eyes narrowing as he spotted movement near one of the damaged hangars. The distinctive tall armored form of a void hunter emerged from the smoke, followed by two more. They were sweeping the area methodically, checking each building. "They're here," Tom said, his voice tense. "3 of them, moving toward the western hangars." "Will they see us if we run for the shuttle?" Mrs. Parker asked. Tom calculated the angles, the distance, the timing. "If we wait until they move behind that fuel depot, we'll have about 60 seconds before they have a clear line of sight again." He turned to face the frightened group. The children huddled together, some crying silently, others too shocked to make a sound. Emma stood among them, her small face dirty and tear-streaked, but her eyes fixed on her father with complete trust. "Listen, up," Tom said, keeping his voice calm and firm. "We're going to run for that shuttle. All together as fast as we can. No stopping, no looking back. If someone falls, the adults will help them up. The only thing that matters is getting on that shuttle. He knelt down to be at eye level with the children. Remember how we practiced emergency drills at school? This is just like that. Mrs. Parker at the front, Mr. Reed in the middle, me at the back. Dad, Emma said, her voice small but steady. What if the shuttle doesn't work? Tom managed to smile for his daughter. Then I'll fix it. That's what I do, remember? I fix things. He checked the landing pad again. The Void Hunters were moving exactly as he'd predicted, approaching the area behind the fuel depot. Get ready, Tom said. When I say go, we move. Fast and quiet. The group lined up at the door. Mrs. Parker took a deep breath, her hand on the release panel. Mr. Reed positioned himself in the middle of the line of children, ready to help anyone who might struggle. Tom took up the rear position, with Emma, directly in front of him. I love you, Space Cadet, he whispered to her. No matter what happens, remember that. Emma nodded, her small shoulders straightening with resolve. I love you too, Dad. The Void Hunters disappeared behind the fuel depot. Now, Tom said sharply. Mrs. Parker hit the door panel. It slid open with a soft hiss and they burst out onto the tarmac, running as fast as the smallest children could manage. The distance to the shuttle seemed enormous in the open, every step exposed. They were halfway there when a high-pitched whine filled the air. Tom looked up to see two small craft descending rapidly toward the landing pad. Void Hunter transport vessels, their sleek black hulls bristling with weapons. Run faster, Tom shouted, all pretense of stealth abandoned. They've seen us. The group surged forward, pure adrenaline pushing them beyond exhaustion. The shuttle was only 30 meters away now. 20. 10. Mrs. Parker reached the shuttle's entry ramp first and slammed her hand against the emergency access panel. The ramp began to lower, agonizingly slow. Come on, Tom muttered, urging the children forward as he continuously looked back to check for pursuers. The three Void Hunters emerged from behind the fuel depot, alerted by the noise. They raised their weapons. Inside now, Tom shouted as the ramp touched the ground. He pushed the last of the children toward the opening, counting heads as they scrambled aboard. 19, 20, 21, including Emma. A blue energy pulse hit the ground near Tom's feet, sending up sparks and fragments of the landing pad. The Void Hunters were firing, still too far away for accuracy but closing the distance rapidly. Tom rushed up the ramp after the last child. Inside, the shuttle's emergency lighting cast everything in a dim red glow. The cockpit door was open, revealing the pilot's chair. Is anyone here a pilot? Tom called out, already knowing the answer. I've had basic training, Mr. Reed said. Part of the security rotation last year. Get up there and start the launch sequence, Tom ordered. The controls should be automated for emergency evacuation. More energy pulses hit the shuttle's hull, making the entire vessel shudder. Through the still open ramp, Tom could see the Void Hunters running toward them while the transport vessels maneuvered to block any potential escape route. Dad, Emma cried, pointing at a display screen near the ramp controls. It showed the shuttle's status, and a critical warning flashed in red. Launch inhibitor active. Tom's heart sank. The Void Hunters had deployed technology to prevent ships from leaving. The shuttle's engines wouldn't fire while the inhibitor was active. From the cockpit, Mr. Reed called back in a panic. The startup sequence is running, but the engines won't engage. Another blast rocked the shuttle. Tom made a split-second decision. Mrs. Parker, he said quickly, get everyone secured in the passenger harnesses. Mr. Reed, keep working on the launch sequence. Be ready to take off the instant the engines are able to fire. What about the inhibitor? Mrs. Parker asked. Tom moved to the weapons locker near the ramp and entered his emergency override code. The locker opened, revealing a standard-issue mining laser, designed for cutting rock but effective enough against electronics. I'm going to destroy it, he said, checking the laser's charge. Dad, no. Emma broke away from the group and ran to him, grabbing his arm. Don't go back out there. Tom looked down at his daughter's face, memorizing every detail. Her mother's blue eyes, the small scar on her chin from falling off her first bike, the freckles across her nose. Emma, he said gently, kneeling to her level. Sometimes being brave means doing scary things to help others. Remember when Mom got sick and she told you to be brave for me? Emma nodded, tears streaming down her face. I need you to be brave again. Get in your seat, strap in, and take care of the other kids who are scared. Can you do that for me? But you'll come back, right? Emma's voice cracked. Tom pulled her into a tight hug. I'll do everything I can to come back to you. But no matter what happens, I'll always be with you, right here. He touched her heart. Another blast hit even closer, and the shuttle rocked violently. We're out of time, Tom said, standing up. Mrs. Parker, please. The teacher nodded, understanding. She gently took Emma's hand. Come on, Emma, your dad needs to help us fly away from here. I love you, Space Cadet, Tom said, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. To the stars and back. To the stars and back, Emma repeated their special phrase, allowing Mrs. Parker to lead her away. Tom hit the ramp. Control, stepping out as it began to close. The last thing he saw inside was Emma's face, watching him with a mixture of fear and trust that nearly broke his resolve. Outside, chaos reigned. The Void Hunters were less than 50 meters away now, their energy weapons firing continuously. The transport vessels hovered overhead, their weapon systems powering up with an ominous hum. Tom sprinted toward a maintenance shed near the edge of the landing pad. According to the shuttle's display, that was where the launch inhibitor had been placed. Every step exposed him to enemy fire, but he zigzagged unpredictably, making himself a difficult target. A blast hit the ground directly in front of him, sending him flying backward. Pain exploded across his left side as he landed hard on the tarmac. Through blurred vision, he saw that his uniform was scorched, the skin underneath burned and blistered. Get up, he growled to himself. Get up. Forcing himself to his feet, Tom limped the remaining distance to the maintenance shed. Inside, he found what he was looking for, a black box with glowing blue lights, emitting a steady pulse that matched the rhythm on the shuttle's warning display. The mining laser felt heavy in his injured hands as he aimed it at the inhibitor device. The beam cut through the outer casing, causing the lights to flicker. Tom adjusted the beam's intensity, focusing on the internal components. Outside, he heard the heavy footsteps of the Void Hunters approaching. They knew what he was doing. The inhibitor sparked and smoked as the laser penetrated its core systems. With a final surge, the blue lights went dark. The device was disabled. Tom activated his tablet's emergency channel. Read, inhibitors down. Launch now. From the landing pad, he heard the shuttle's engines roar to life. A wave of relief washed over him. They could escape now. But as he stepped out of the shed, he saw one of the Void Hunter transport vessels, repositioning, its weapons targeting the shuttle directly. If it fired, the shuttle would be destroyed before it could clear the atmosphere. There was one defense turret on this side of the landing pad, an automated system designed to protect against meteors and debris, but it could be manually controlled. It was just within reach, about 20 meters away. Tom ran for it, ignoring the searing pain in his side. The Void Hunters spotted him and redirected their fire. Energy blasts tore up the tarmac around him as he reached the turret's control panel. His hands flew over the controls, bypassing the automated systems and bringing the weapons online in manual mode. The shuttle was rising now, its engines glowing bright against the smoky sky. Tom targeted the closest transport vessel and fired. The turret's laser struck the vessel's weapons array, causing a small explosion that made it veer off course, but the second vessel was still in position, its weapons charging for a killing shot at the rising shuttle. Tom swung the turret toward it, but a blast from one of the Void Hunters hit the control panel, sending sparks flying. The targeting system was damaged, but the turret could still fire. Through the smoke and chaos, Tom saw the shuttle climbing higher, Emma and the others safely inside. The Void Hunter vessel fired a missile, its trajectory aimed perfectly to intercept the shuttle. In that moment, Tom knew what he had to do. There was only one way to save them. He positioned himself between the turret and the oncoming missile. Using his body as a shield, he reached around to the exposed wiring of the damaged control panel. With a final surge of strength, he crossed the wires that would cause the turret to overload. The resulting explosion was massive, creating a shockwave that knocked the missile off course. It detonated harmlessly in the air, well away from the escaping shuttle. As pain and darkness closed in around him, Tom looked up at the sky. The shuttle was just a small speck now, rising steadily toward the stars, toward safety, toward Emma's future. "To the stars and back, Space Cadet," he whispered as the world faded away. Tom Miller died as he had lived, protecting what mattered most. And high above, in a shuttle racing toward distant stars, a small girl pressed her hand against a viewport, watching her home disappear behind her, not yet understanding the full measure of her father's sacrifice. 3 months had passed since the attack on New Haven. On a Central Alliance world called Terra Nova, the morning sun streamed through tall windows, casting long rectangles of light across the floor of a modest apartment. Emma Miller sat at a small desk, her fingers carefully assembling a miniature circuit board. At 8 years old, she had her father's steady hands and sharp mind for engineering. "Emma, breakfast is ready," called a gentle voice from the kitchen. Linda Green, Emma's foster mother, was a kind woman in her 40s who had volunteered to take in survivors from New Haven. Her husband, Michael, worked in the Alliance Defense Department, which was how they had been among the first to hear about the disaster and offer their home. Emma placed her tools down carefully, exactly as her father had taught her. "Everything in its place, Space Cadet," he used to say. "A good engineer respects their tools." The memory brought the familiar ache to her chest, but she had learned to breathe through it. She walked to the kitchen, where Linda was placing a bowl of fruit beside a plate of toast. "Did you sleep better last night?" Linda asked, noting the dark circles under Emma's eyes that were slowly fading as the weeks passed. Emma nodded. "Only one bad dream." Linda didn't press for details. She knew about the nightmares, explosions running through dark tunnels, and worst of all, watching her father walk down that ramp for the last time. Some nights Emma would wake up screaming his name. "Miss Parker is coming to visit today," Linda said as Emma began eating. "She wants to see how you're settling in with school." Emma brightened a little at the mention of her former teacher. Mrs. Parker had been one of the 23 survivors on the shuttle, and she had held Emma during those terrible first days after they reached safety, when the full reality of what had happened began to sink in. "Can I show her my project?" Emma asked. "Of course," Linda smiled. "She'll be very impressed." After breakfast, Emma returned to her room to get ready for the day. On her bedside table sat a telescope, not the one her father had bought for her 8th birthday, but a replacement the Greens had given her when they learned about her interest in astronomy. Beside it was a framed photo of Tom Miller, his arm around a younger Emma, both smiling in front of New Haven's community garden. Emma touched the photo gently before turning to her closet to get dressed. As she pulled on her blue shirt, her father's favorite color, she heard the doorbell ring. In the living room, Mrs. Parker was greeting Linda with a hug. When Emma appeared, Mrs. Parker knelt down to embrace her too. "Look at you," Mrs. Parker said warmly, "growing taller every time I see you." "I grew 1 whole centimeter since last month," Emma reported seriously. "Mr. Green marked it on the wall." Mrs. Parker smiled, but Emma noticed her eyes looked tired. All the adults had tired eyes these days. "Emma, why don't you show Mrs. Parker your project while I make some tea?" Linda suggested. Emma led her former teacher to her room where the half-assembled circuit board sat on her desk. "What are you building?" Mrs. Parker asked, examining the intricate pattern of connections. "It's a better emergency beacon," Emma explained. "The ones on New Haven weren't strong enough to get through the Void Hunter's jamming signals. This one uses multiple frequencies and a special coding system." Mrs. Parker's expression softened with a mixture of pride and sadness. "You're so much like your father. He would be very proud of you." Emma nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I know. He taught me lots of things about engineering. I remember them all." They talked for a while about Emma's new school and her classmates. Unlike many of the New Haven survivors who had been relocated across different Alliance worlds, Emma had adjusted relatively well to her new surroundings. The Greens had made sure she received counseling, and her natural resilience, inherited from both her parents, had helped her cope with the trauma. Later, when Emma was helping Linda prepare lunch, Mrs. Parker and Mr. Green spoke quietly in the living room. "How is she really doing?" Mrs. Parker asked. Michael Green ran a hand through his graying hair. "Better than most. The nightmares are becoming less frequent. The therapist says her focus on engineering projects is a healthy way of processing her grief. It keeps her connected to her father." "And the others from our group?" "All settled with families across 3 different worlds. The Alliance is keeping close tabs on everyone, making sure they have the support they need." Michael's voice dropped lower. "But that's not the only reason I wanted to talk to you today. There's been a development." Mrs. Parker leaned forward. "About New Haven?" Michael nodded. "About Tom Miller specifically." In the small dining room, the adults gathered around the table with Emma. Linda had made a special lunch with all of Emma's favorite foods. There was an air of anticipation that Emma didn't quite understand, but she could sense that something important was happening. After they had eaten, Michael cleared his throat. "Emma, there's something I need to tell you about your father." Emma looked up, suddenly alert. Any mention of her father immediately captured her full attention. "You know that your dad saved everyone on that shuttle." Michael began carefully. "But what you don't know is that he did something else. Something just as important." He pulled out his tablet and placed it on the table. "During the attack, your father managed to activate his engineer's data recorder. It captured everything: the Void Hunters' weapons, their tactics, even some of their communication frequencies." Emma's eyes widened. Her father had always carried that recorder. "Dad said a good engineer always keeps records," she said softly. Michael nodded. He was right. And those records made it onto the shuttle with you. When Alliance forces finally reached the system, they found his data. It's the most complete information we've ever had on the Void Hunters. "Is that good?" Emma asked hesitantly. "It's very good," Michael said. "The Alliance has been studying it for months. They've developed new defenses specifically designed to counter Void Hunter technology. 3 days ago, those defenses were used to successfully repel an attack on another mining colony." Mrs. Parker reached across the table to take Emma's hand. "Your father saved more than just the people on that shuttle, Emma. He saved countless others who would have been attacked next." Emma sat very still, processing this information. Her father had always been a hero to her, but now he was a hero to others too. It made her feel both proud and sad at the same time. "There's more," Michael continued. "The Alliance Defense Council has created a new protocol for all frontier colonies. It's a special defensive system that automatically transmits sensor data and activates emergency beacons that can't be jammed. They're calling it Miller's Shield." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "They named it after Dad?" Linda put her arm around Emma's shoulders. "Yes, sweetheart. Your father's name will help protect people for years to come." Later that afternoon, after Mrs. Parker had left, Emma sat at her window with her telescope. It wasn't dark enough to see stars yet, but she liked the feel of it in her hands, the solid weight, the smooth metal that reminded her of the tools her father used to let her hold in his workshop. Michael knocked gently on her open door. "May I come in?" Emma nodded, still looking through the telescope at the distant mountains. "I have something else to show you," Michael said, sitting on the edge of her bed. He held out a small chip. "This contains all your father's engineering notes and designs from New Haven. The Alliance preserved them from the colony's backup systems. I thought you might want to have them." Emma took the chip carefully, as if it were made of glass. "All of Dad's work?" "Everything," Michael confirmed, including his design for an improved air filtration system that he was working on before the attack. Emma clutched the chip tightly. It was like having a piece of her father back. His thoughts, his ideas, his legacy. "There's one more thing," Michael said. "The Defense Academy has a special program for young engineers. When you're older, if you want, you could apply. With your father's talent in you, I have no doubt you'd..." Be accepted. For the first time in months, Emma felt a spark of real excitement. I could build things to protect people like Dad did? Michael nodded. Exactly like that. That night, Emma lay in bed, the chip containing her father's work safe in a small box beside her. Outside her window, the stars had appeared, bright points of light against the darkness. She remembered how her father used to lift her onto his shoulders so she could see better through his old telescope on New Haven. Every star could have planets around it, he had told her, and someday humans might live on many of them. That's why we build things, Space Cadet, to help people live better, safer lives wherever they are. Emma touched the telescope beside her bed. 3 months ago, her world had ended in fire and fear. Her father had given his life so that she and others could escape, but he had also left behind something else, a purpose. In his final acts, Tom Miller had not only saved lives but had created a shield that would continue to protect others long after he was gone. To the stars and back, Dad, Emma whispered, their special phrase floating up toward the ceiling and beyond, into the infinite night sky. As she drifted toward sleep, Emma's mind filled with designs and improvements for her emergency beacon project. Tomorrow she would continue building one circuit at a time. It was what her father would have wanted. It was his legacy, living on through her. And somewhere far away, on colonies protected by Miller's shield, people would look up at the stars without fear, never knowing that their safety had been purchased by one man's sacrifice. A human who died protecting not just his child, but a future worth living in.